It's another crazy day in the world of Magic the Gathering. Wizards of the Coast has let us know that a big ban announcement is coming on Monday. And on top of that, we have some absolute ridiculousness going on with secret layers.
Magic. I am a wizard! History. I'm an old wizard! The magic historian. My bones hurt.
Greetings, owners of fine luxury cardboard rectangles, my friends. I hope the day finds you well because we have gathered for another wonderful installment of Mega Magic News. This time it's banning and secret lair shenanigans. So before we dive into that, if anybody's wondering what was going on with the whole sweet baby situation, I did a live stream about it last night. It's up on the archive. A word of warning, it is a ultra megaton rant. Not only should you not bring your children to it, if you have old pets, put them outside your home before you even start the live stream. It might actually set your house on fire. So be warned, it'll be linked at the end. It's absolutely wild. Now that that's out of the way, let's talk about the secret lair ridiculousness, the shenanigans that Wizards of the Coast has been up to. So this is specifically in regards to the secret lair bonus cards. You know how it works. They used to give us crazy funky stuff, and then they went, how about basic lands? And then they went, how about slivers? And slivers went pretty well. And then they went, what if we layered in a bunch of rando elves? And that led to this image. Take a look at this. You see that? That's 5 Skemfars right there. This is every bonus card that somebody got from all of the secret lairs that they ordered. Every single secret lair had the exact same bonus card. This is total madness. And the crazy thing is, when this person shared this picture, multiple other people started chiming in. I had no concept that this has been an ongoing problem with Magic the Gathering. This isn't the first secret lair drop where people have actually had this happen. Apparently it's happening with increased frequency with the elf versions of the secret lair bonus cards. Now it's not clear exactly what's going on, if Wizards is just not collating them, and it's like, if you order all your boxes together at the same time, you're literally gonna get all the same bonus cards. But this is a huge issue. The bonus cards are in there for a reason. It's supposed to tantalize you as the extra essentially the boosterification of secret lair boxes, right? Whoa, maybe you'll get one of those crazy pigeon versions of the petitioners or some sweet alternate art version of a card that anybody can play any number of copies of in their deck. But more and more people are just getting the wah, and it's one thing to get wah with a jank bag elf. It's another thing to get want with the same one over and over and over until it iterates 5 different times. It's pure madness. And it's crazy to see there are people defending it. They go, imagine being somebody who was upset about the bonus cards that were included that weren't even advertised with the product. Everybody knows these bonus cards exist. And pretending like you should be happy that Wizards gave you 5 times the slop is not a reasonable position. But, I mean, some people are maniacs who will defend Wizards no matter what's going on. Getting 5 of the same secret lair promo is really, even if you're somebody who's really into Magic and defending them, understand, this is bad for the game because the people who are buying the secret lairs, oh, I bought a whole super drop. I got all the same promos. Yeah, you know what? Maybe I'm not going to do this anymore because I'm getting hosed. And no amount of going, well, you should be more grateful online is going to turn them back into customers, right? It is a totally legitimate grief. Now, let us move on to talking about the major ban announcement because it's kind of a strange situation the way that Wizards has done this. They basically came out in the middle of a Commander game and were like, hey, just so you guys know, we're playing Command here or whatever, we got a ban incoming on Monday and we're actually going to have a full-on live stream discussing what happens with that ban announcement. So we've seen in the past that Wizards of the Coast has just used recent ban announcements to either explain away why they're not banning cards that need to be banned, or even more ridiculously, the play booster announcement where that was just a miscommunication. Sure it was. You knew everybody was going to be looking for the banned and restricted, and you went, well, we're not actually making any changes, but we are changing things into play boosters, so go read this article about it. They just went, meh. When it comes to bannings, Wizards of the Coast has this weird sort of mentality going on right now where they're like, the problem isn't card design, it isn't power creep, it isn't our greed, none of it. The problem is that we're just banning too many cards. And it's a crazy mindset to have in the era where fire design exists, where they're basically just burn it all, make the craziest, most powerful cards, and also ease up on bannings. That is not the way. For anybody who thinks that Wizards should just unban everything and let everything sort itself out, it doesn't work that way. When things get too broken and insane, it devolves into Magic being either a one deck scenario like we had with the crazy Oko nonsense, or a two deck scenario where you either play the epic deck that destroys everybody or the one deck that can stop it, and that's it. There's no room in between. So as far as I'm concerned, bannings are absolutely necessary to maintain the health of formats. So I have a number of different cards that we're going to talk about for different formats that are targets. Now, these aren't automatically going to get banned, right? We have to see what Wizards of the Coast is going to say and what their end goals are. So I'm going to start out by talking about Standard, because I actually believe that Standard is the format that is, aside from things like Vintage and Legacy, which are completely removed from this conversation ultimately, because those ones, I think Wizards has the most hands-off approach to, and they don't really care what happens to them because it's like, yo, you can shove whatever you want into it and it's already the most broken format. On top of that, they don't really develop products specifically for those formats. So as far as I'm concerned, that's the one they're least concerned about managing properly. And ultimately, with the power level of the pool, it can absorb the most kind of stuff. But Standard's on the opposite end of it. Standard has recently changed into a 3-year fiasco just based on the fact that they want to sell more booster boxes, not on balancing the format. So like, we're going to fix Standard, but we're not really going to do bans except at very particular points. So March 11th is the next one that they're doing for the banning announcement, but that doesn't really line up with a Standard ban, because the only thing I can think of right now that they might consider banning is Sheoldred, and Sheoldred is really obnoxious, right? It's not fun to play against, but it's not like insurmountable. It's not dominating everything to the point where it absolutely has to go. And so since Wizards has this whole like, yo, especially with Standard, we're only going to do bans like 3 weeks. We'll give ourselves a 3-week window after each set. But other than that, we're only going to do bannings once a year. Now, if they get Standard into more of a balanced position, that won't really be a problem, but it is going to take some time for design to get there. But Standard, as far as I'm concerned, is not really ripe to be part of this. But when we move to other formats, you got a bunch of great targets. We're going to start out by talking about Explorer and the hilarious Explore combo that uses Wild Growth Walker and Amalia, because I absolutely love this. This is wonky, wild nonsense. So here's how it works. Amalia and Wild Growth Walkers are best friends, right? They're like, I got a gift for you. Well, buddy, I got a gift for you. Because one of them is like, yo, whenever you gain life, you get to explore. Cool. And then the other one's like, yo, whenever you explore, you get to gain life. So Amalia just goes, Wild Growth Walker, let's get beefing, right? So you just start piling the counters on Amalia. Boom, Wild Growth Walker, triggers back and forth, triggers back and forth, triggers back and forth, triggers back and forth, until you hit 20. Once you hit 20, Amalia's ultimate goes off. Boom, wipes out all the other creatures, gets rid of the Wild Growth Walker, stops the whole thing from going on, right? So it turns out that this combo led to absolute insanity in the form, basically, of somebody going, wait a minute. Amalia only triggers at exactly 20, right? So if I go ahead and make the Wild Growth Walker indestructible when it's about to be destroyed, then there's literally nothing you can do, right? So what happens when you're going to win with the Amalia deck is you go off, the Wild Growth Walker grows, and now you're ready to just, it's been destroyed, and you're ready to smash with Amalia. You're going to win, whatever, right? But if you turn around and make the Wild Growth Walker indestructible in response, Amalia's ability only triggers at exactly 20. So as soon as she goes up to 21, it never, ever stops. It just keeps going on endlessly, right? It's basically an auto drop because the person in charge of it, there's a lot of combos where you can choose how many times you do it and you go, I'll do it 2 billion times, gain 2 billion life. But with Amalia and Wild Growth Walker, they will trigger over and over and over and over infinitely, causing a draw, which has led matches to sometimes end up with 7 draws in a row, where all you have to do is wait for the right moment, go, indestructible, your Wild Growth Walker, I guess we're not playing anymore. And that's a pretty easy way to shut down that combo in terms of, bam, there you go, you can't do it. But at the same time, it's gonna look really, really bad if if you go to like some like big qualifier event and something like that, and that's dominating. People have to sit there and wait and just go, okay, so hours and hours are dedicated to this iteration over and over again as they keep playing, trying to get to an actual winner. It's total madness. So when it comes down to it, Amalia is way newer. She's a hype rare from a new set that's still in print. She's not the target for this ban. Wild Growth Walker. You get rid of Wild Growth Walker, that just shuts the whole thing down. Plus, it's just an uncommon from like the original Ixalan block or whatever. So in terms of bannage, it has virtually no impact on the secondary market or anything like that. And I mean, people who are playing the goofy little deck, they're going to get it. They're going to understand why it's been nerfed. Moving on, let's talk about some Pioneer action. So you might have heard that Vein Ripper is ripping it up. That crazy vampire from Karlov Manor, right? It's a powerhouse when you can get it out on the cheap and easy. And that's where Sorin comes into play, right? Sorin lets you slap vampires straight out. And he was in M20, right? So he's not that old. He's fairly recent, but obviously he's too old to be in things like Standard. So when it comes to this, we're specifically looking at Pioneer. And ultimately, I don't think that Wizards of the Coast is going to ban Vein Ripper, obviously, because that card is brand new. That's one of the things that stops Wizards from doing bans, right? They're not going to ban Mythics while they're still trying to sell sets, especially when it's a set as bad as Karlov Manor. So Vein Ripper is off the table for the ban, but Sorin is an easy choice. Sure, by removing him, you are diminishing what can be done in the meta of Pioneer, but it does neatly handle the problem, and at the end of the day, it is from a set that they're no longer selling. So that moves the likelihood up, for me, of Sorin being a ban target. Next up, we got a big target in Modern that honestly, I'm kind of surprised hasn't been banned already. That's Fable of the Mirror Breaker. This card gives you so much value. Free bodies, card draw, like it's all slapped together into an ultra value package. Like the card is so good that you don't even really need to have it explained to you. Why is this card good? It's because this is emblematic of current era Magic, where they slap so much power onto a card, they literally have to turn it over to get more power on the back. Remember, they're changing terms like enter the battlefield just to enter is because they're running out of real estate. So Fable of the Mirror Breaker is super, super powerhouse and totally could get the ban. Next up on the list for Pioneer, we've got Treasure Cruise, which obviously at 8 mana ain't a deal, but most of the time you're going to be able to delve it down super cheap, almost to the point where you may be able to Ancestral Recall with it. Now this one, I don't really know 100% what the guiding theory of Pioneer is, so I don't know if Treasure Cruise is actually going to fall on the side of we need to get rid of this, or if it's actually something that they consider an important piece that people can use to stop other kind of decks from winning, right? I don't spend a lot of time playing super competitive Magic and playing in formats like Pioneer, so I don't have absolute knowledge of that sort of thing. Now, let's move on to talking about Modern, because there's some real potential here for some bannings, right? Starting out with Orcish Bowmasters. These guys are crazy nonsense to the point where there are actually people crying out for it to be banned in the old school, like legacy vintage style stuff, specifically because, more in legacy than vintage, but specifically because it shuts off 1 toughness creatures. Orcish Bowmasters makes it impossible for 1 toughness creatures to thrive, and Wizards of the Coast has acknowledged this. They have acknowledged Orcish Bowmaster's power level, and they've said going forwards, they're going to design more cards with 2 toughness. So I don't know how, where's the line between we're making too many creatures with 2 toughness to deal with Bowmaster and then just getting rid of Bowmaster? Part of the problem stems from what I've said about other cards being banned, and that Wizards really doesn't want to ban any cards that they're selling right now. And Lord of the Rings is their most profitable set in, well, I guess in all of Magic's history, really. It's made like over $200 million. So they have more of it to sell. They have the 2nd edition of it to sell. So Orcish Bowmasters is powerhouse, and it totally pretty much does deserve to get the boot, but I don't see it being likely. Now, the One Ring falls into a similar category, except I don't think the One Ring is really tearing up Modern the same way it used to, and I think the Orcish Bowmasters is a bigger problem than the One Ring. So I'm not mentioning the One Ring as a candidate. I'm really mentioning it because I don't think that Wizards is going to mess with that at all. Then we have Grief, right? And this is part of the cycle of free spells from the first Modern Horizons. And actually, speaking of Modern Horizons, I do expect that there's 2 different ways they can go with this overall for Modern. When it comes to Modern Horizons 3, they could be looking at it like this. They could go, okay, we've got to smooth the path for Modern Horizons 3. There's going to be some stuff in here that's going to be a huge problem with this other stuff, so why don't we ban it preemptively before this deck becomes a problem? But that does show a lot of forethought on Wizards of the Coast's part, and I don't really feel like that's what they're known for now. So I feel like the mentality will more likely be, why don't we just dump this in, see what happens? Maybe it'll sort out our problems. You know, I feel like they mostly have whatever, hope it sorts itself out, and if it turns into too much of a dumpster fire, then we'll get the hose. Okay, guys, we're gonna sprinkle it a bit. You know, like it's that kind of a vibe. So Grief is one of the free cycle of spells. These cards were an absolute mistake, right? Like, some of them tend to be a little more balanced overall, but Magic's balancing mechanic is the casting costs of cards. And when you circumvent that, you cause problems. And we've already seen some of these free cycle creatures end up getting banned. So the question is Grief too powerful, or is it just powerful enough? Is it too overwhelming? Not 100% sure on that one. Now, the next card I want to talk about is one that they're going to nail if they're trying to be preemptive to handle Modern. If they're not, then it might not get hit. And that is Violent Outburst, okay? This is essentially, if I'm not mistaken, the last instant speed cascade spell that exists inside of Modern. And if you're not familiar with cascade shenanigans, well, it causes big time problems because it allows you to get spells that are cheaper than it. So cast this spell and then go get a spell that costs less than it and play it for free, right? So all you do is you put cheap spells that are the only spell that you need to get with this, and you can basically auto-target it, right? So we saw something kind of like that with the Tybalt's Trickery shenanigans, where you see like weird, crazy nonsense going on. So if they want to get out ahead of it, let's say Modern Horizons has some super cheap, broken nonsense that they don't want you cascading into, then Violent Outburst could easily be getting the boot, and then there would literally be no more instant access to Cascade. You can still have Cascade at sorcery speed, which is strong, but not busted, right? So overall, when it comes to these bannings, I feel like the most likely candidates are Wild Growth Walker, Fable of the Mirror Breaker, and then Bowmasters. I'm right on the fence. Like, I really don't know if Wizards has actually internally decided to be a little more firm with this stuff, because ultimately, remember what I said about them reestablishing the entire path of standards, starting from the pre-release, the championships, all the standard showdown, all of it. So there are some indicators. Like, I feel like back around Throne of Eldraine, Wizards of the Coast just went, forget it. We don't even care. Here's what we're doing. We're just making busted nonsense to go into any format. We're putting it all in standard. We don't care how unbalanced it gets. We're not going to do anything really to maintain things. And we're only going to step in when stuff gets too disastrous levels. But ultimately, they have run into a bunch of problems because of doing things like that. And Standard had shriveled because of a number of different factors. So my hope is that they're going to start to take a more proactive approach and manage the formats better. But the more cynical part of me says that ultimately probably what's going to happen is the same thing that's always happened, where they do the bare minimum. They end up saying, oh, hey, we're just keeping our eyes on it. It's not a big deal. But really what they're keeping their eyes on are the stock that they have left of the product. And once it's sold, then they come out and go, it's a big problem. Other than that, they just go, oh, no, nothing's wrong. Are the boxes sold? We just realized this card is terrible and we gotta ban it. So aside from this, unless there's some crazy cards that I just don't know about that are gonna combo with Modern Horizon 3 cards that we just haven't even seen yet, but I don't think Wizards ever does that. I don't think they ban cards preemptively for something that's coming out. The only preemptive ban I remember ever is Lutri from Ikoria, where they preemptively banned him in Commander. And that was it, right? Because it was just too much of an easy auto include. And for the format, it doesn't even make any sense to just allow, oh yeah, do you play blue-red? Well, great. You can have an advantage that nobody else can have. So they preemptively banned that. But I don't really see them doing anything of that nature here. I am still genuinely hopeful that we are moving in the right direction and they will take a firmer hand with the bannings and ultimately card design. But time will tell. Anyways, that announcement is coming out on Monday. Like they said, they'll be doing a live stream on it, so I will cover the information that they talk about in a future video. Thanks for coming by, my friends. Big shout out to all of my patrons for supporting my channel. Thank you very much. And here's the link for that crazy live stream if you want to go and check it out.